Ranking the difficulty of the 12 labors Hercules performed in Greek mythology. Hercules, the strongest and most famous demigod in Greek mythology, was the son of Zeus and a beautiful mortal woman named Alcmene. This infuriated Zeus' wife, Hera, who despised Hercules. Hera caused Hercules to go mad, and in his madness, he tragically harmed his own wife and children. When he regained his senses, Hercules was filled with deep regret and sought a way to atone for his sins. He consulted the oracle Pythia, who told him that he must complete 10 tasks under the command of King Eurystheus to cleanse his soul. This was indirectly orchestrated by Hera, Hercules' eternal enemy, who helped Eurystheus become king and forced Hercules into submission. However, the tasks weren't as simple as just 10. Eurystheus refused to acknowledge 2 of the labors, meaning Hercules had to complete an additional 2, bringing the total to the legendary 12 labors. Below is the ranking of the difficulty of the 12 labors that Hercules performed. Top 12. Cleaning the Augean stables. You might think cleaning a stable is easy, right? But the stables of King Aegeus hadn't been cleaned in decades, filled with so much filth and manure that it seemed impossible to clean in just one day as the king demanded. How Hercules accomplished it? Instead of using brute force to clean up each pile of manure, Hercules used his superior intellect. He diverted the flow of 2 large rivers, guiding the water directly through the stables, washing everything away in just a few hours. Difficulty ranking. 3/10. This labor didn't require much strength, but Hercules used his intelligence to complete what seemed like an impossible task. Top 11. Capturing the Ceryneian hind. The Ceryneian hind was a doe with golden antlers, and it was so fast that no one could ever catch up to it. Moreover, it was under the protection of the goddess Artemis, meaning Hercules had to capture it alive without harming it, or he would face the wrath of the goddess. How Hercules accomplished it? Instead of using force, Hercules pursued the hind for an entire year. When the hind was finally exhausted, Hercules shot a precise arrow at its leg, lightly wounding it without causing serious harm. He then captured the hind alive and delivered it to Eurystheus. Difficulty ranking. For 10ths, although time-consuming, this labor didn't require exceptional strength, but demanded patience and precision. Top 10. Capturing the Cretan bull. This giant bull was not only ferocious, but also incredibly strong, having devastated the island of Crete. Hercules had to capture it alive without causing it any harm. How Hercules accomplished it? For an ordinary person, this bull would have been a nightmare, but with his immense strength, Hercules wrestled with it, subdued it with his bare hands, and brought it back to King Eurystheus without injuring the bull. Difficulty ranking. 4/10. A task requiring sheer strength, but not too dangerous for Hercules. Top 9. Capturing the Erymanthian boar. The Erymanthian boar wasn't just enormous, but also ferocious and wild, wreaking havoc wherever it went. It could tear a person apart in seconds, and facing it required absolute bravery. How Hercules accomplished it? Hercules didn't charge head-on against the boar. Instead, he used strategy to lure it into a snow-covered area. Once the beast was trapped in the snow and exhausted, Hercules tied it up and brought it back to King Eurystheus. Difficulty ranking. 5/10. Although dangerous, Hercules used his wits to defeat the beast without relying on pure strength. Top 8. Defeating the Stymphalian birds. The Stymphalian birds had beaks and claws made of metal, and they shot their feathers like sharp arrows, posing a deadly threat to everyone nearby. They hid in a dense forest, making it almost impossible to approach and defeat them. How Hercules accomplished it? With the help of the goddess Athena, Hercules used a bronze bell to create a terrifying sound, scaring the birds out of the forest. As they flew into the open, Hercules shot them down from a distance, one by one, using his bow and arrows. Difficulty ranking. 6/10. Although aided by Athena, this task still required precise archery skills and the courage to face a dangerous airborne threat. Top 7. Defeating the Nemean Lion. The Nemean Lion was no ordinary lion. Its skin was as hard as steel, impervious to any sword or arrow. Terrified by the lion's invincibility, the villagers could only run and hide, while Hercules faced it head-on. In some versions of the myth, The Nemean lion was said to be the offspring of the monster Typhon and Echidna, which explained its impenetrable hide. This made it not just a powerful beast, but a descendant of some of the most terrifying creatures in Greek mythology. How Hercules accomplished it. Hercules quickly realized that no weapon could harm the lion. He cornered the beast in a cave, and, using his bare hands, wrestled with it in a life or death struggle. He squeezed the lion's neck until it stopped breathing. Afterward, Hercules had to use the lion's own claws to skin it, turning the hide into armor, one of his most iconic symbols. Difficulty ranking. 7/10 facing an invincible monster was no easy task, but Hercules used both wit and strength to prevail. Top 6. Obtaining Hippolyta's girdle. The Amazons were a legendary tribe of fierce warrior women, and their queen, Hippolyta, owned a girdle gifted to her by Ares, the god of war. Hercules was tasked with retrieving this girdle, which meant he would either have to persuade or battle these fearsome Amazons. How Hercules accomplished it. Initially, Hippolyta was willing to give the girdle to Hercules. However, the ever-scheming goddess Hera, who opposed Hercules at every turn, spread rumors among the Amazons that Hercules had come to kidnap their queen. This led to a fierce battle between Hercules and the Amazons, but Hercules ultimately defeated them and took the girdle by force. Difficulty ranking. 7/10 what could have been a simple task turned into a bloody battle due to Hera's interference, making this task much harder than it appeared. Top 5. Capturing the mares of Diomedes. The mares of Diomedes were not ordinary horses. They were man-eating beasts, trained by the cruel King Diomedes to kill anyone who dared approach them. These bloodthirsty creatures were the terror of the land. How Hercules accomplished it. Hercules knew that in order to tame these vicious horses, he had to deal with their master first. He defeated Diomedes in battle and fed the king to his own horses, which calmed them down. Afterward, Hercules captured the mares and brought them back to King Eurystheus. Difficulty ranking. 8/10 the mares were not only dangerous, but the task also required Hercules to face and defeat a ruthless enemy in order to succeed. Top 4. Defeating the Hydra of Lerna. The Hydra was a nightmare of a creature. It had many venomous heads, and whenever one was cut off, 2 more would grow back. Just one bite could be deadly due to its lethal poison. This monstrous serpent lived in a dangerous swamp, where no one dared to approach. How Hercules accomplished it. Hercules couldn't tackle this task alone. He needed the help of his nephew Iolaus. As Hercules chopped off each head of the Hydra, Iolaus quickly used fire to cauterize the wounds, preventing new heads from growing. After dealing with the smaller heads, Hercules faced the Hydra's immortal head, which could not be destroyed by conventional weapons. He had to use his strength to lift the monster's head and bury it under a massive rock, ending the Hydra's life. After slaying the Hydra, Hercules dipped his arrows in its poisonous blood. These arrows later caused his own death when his wife, Deianira, accidentally used the Hydra's blood soaked into a robe to poison Hercules. Difficulty ranking. 9/10 the Hydra was an incredibly dangerous foe with regenerative powers, requiring both strength and strategy to defeat, and its poison eventually played a role in Hercules' demise. Top 3. Retrieving Geryon's cattle. Geryon's cattle were guarded by the giant Geryon, who had 3 bodies, along with a 2-headed dog and a deadly herdsman. These magical cattle were located far across the sea, and Hercules had to overcome many obstacles just to reach them. How Hercules accomplished it. After traveling to the ends of the world, Hercules killed Geryon's dog and herdsman. Then, using his bow and arrows, he defeated Geryon in a battle that tested his strength and skill. Finally, Hercules collected the cattle and brought them back to King Eurystheus. Difficulty ranking. 9/10 with numerous deadly enemies, and a journey to the ends of the world. This task was one of Hercules' most challenging feats. Top 2. Retrieving the apples of the Hesperides. It may sound simple, but the apples of the Hesperides are magical golden fruits belonging to Hera, guarded by the Hesperides nymphs and a 100-headed dragon named Ladon. Hercules didn't even know where the garden of the apples was, making this task incredibly difficult. After traveling the world to locate the garden, Hercules convinced the Titan Atlas to retrieve the apples for him. as only near-divine beings could overcome the dragon. In return, Hercules agreed to hold up the sky while Atlas fetched the apples. When Atlas tried to trick Hercules into holding the sky forever, Hercules outsmarted him and safely brought the apples back to Eurystheus, an almost impossible task requiring intelligence, strength, and strategy, along with facing divine creatures. Top 1. Capturing Cerberus. Cerberus, the three-headed dog guarding the gates of the underworld, is the most fearsome creature Hercules faced. Not only is it a gigantic monster, but Hercules also had to descend into the underworld to capture it, a place where no mortal is allowed to enter. With permission from Hades, Hercules faced Cerberus without weapons and used his sheer strength to subdue the beast. After a fierce battle, Hercules dragged Cerberus out of the underworld and brought it back to Eurystheus, completing his final labor. Facing death and battling a creature from the underworld, this task is truly the most challenging and terrifying of all. Hercules' achievement here is often seen as a symbol of overcoming death, and ultimately, he attained immortality by being accepted to Olympus after his death. Through the 12 labors, Hercules demonstrated not only his strength, but also his patience and intelligence. As the most powerful and famous demigod in Greek mythology, which of the labors do you think was the most challenging and grandest? Let me know in the comments.